We are back from Oklahoman's video studio. Our Super Tuesday coverage of election 2016 marches on as we'll have live coverage throughout the night here on newsok.com. You can join us on various sources, whether it's Facebook Live for a look behind the scenes of how things are done at the Oklahoman on election night, or at least how we do them. You can follow us on social media, our various Twitter accounts. We will be checking in throughout the night on the various watch parties around Oklahoma City as well from the Republican and Democrat side of things. At this point, we'll bring back in Phil O'Connor from the Oklahoman's news desk and our two pollsters, Pat McFerron and Bill Shapard. And Phil, lots to talk about as we start to crunch these numbers.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I was saying since we've been off the air the last few minutes, these guys have been working their phones feverishly. So, Pat, what are you finding out?
Well, it's always fun on election night to go down and look really more at the data and everything that's happening. And of course, don't want to bury the lead. I mean, the lead is Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders are winning Oklahoma, have won Oklahoma, and things have changed. And things change quickly. If you look at the early voting, that is those who voted by absentee or voted early, but through Saturday, we had a totally different result. Among that group of people, Donald Trump looks like he had 29%. Of those votes cast. Cruz had 20. It was 32 to 23 to 20 for Rubio on the Republican side.
Very close to what your poll
It is, and Bill's as well. And on the Democrat side, Clinton had just over 50% of those votes cast early, with Sanders at, if I can do my math quick in my head here, at about 43 or 44. So we've seen a flip of a substantial amount of votes in those last few days.
What does it mean? What's that mean?
Well, I think we talked about it before. I think it means the ground game, the turnout efforts that they had, and then also I think the television buy, especially on the Republican side. We saw Bernie Sanders ads all the time. The two campaigns that ran the most ads were Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders. Money wins elections.
And it also says that a lot of people waited to make their final decision in the last weekend, and I think that's very uncommon even for a lot of the elections.
Especially for a primary, and it might be because of the larger turnout that we saw more of that happen.
Right.
Interesting. So going forward, when we start looking at the precinct, and I don't know that we have that information yet, is there any indication of just like in the major cities how they did?
Yes, and some of these numbers are a little bit behind, but I've got 69% of Oklahoma County reporting, 31% for Rubio, 30.5% for Cruz, and Trump at 26%. And go up the Turnpike in Tulsa, 31 Cruz, 30 Rubio, 28 for Trump. So very competitive there. About 75% of that vote in.
You going to see much difference between the city vote and the rural vote? I would expect there to be a big.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look just at a kind of a color-coded map, Trump did very well in the southeast, winning most every county in the southeast. The trouble in a Republican primary, there aren't very many votes there. He also won a few in the northeast, but again, smaller ones, Delaware and Craig counties. But really, even Congressional District 2, which we are a proportional state, so it matters. I think we're going to find out that Cruz ends up winning those because he racks up pretty good numbers in Rogers County, where he's at 37% versus 31 for Trump and 22 for Rubio, and Wagner County, where he's at 38 to 31 and then 22 for Rubio. And if you look out west, the Panhandle went solidly for Cruz, as did most of the rural Northwest.
I think in the coming weeks, especially for Centerpol, we'll spend a lot of time looking at the data. We want to wait and get who voted and go through that and see what that profile was. Were these voters that had a behavior, an established pattern of voting, or were these new voters that came out? Were these new voters that were, enticed out because of some of the personal contact and the advertising and things of that nature in the closing weekend? For me, the entire story for tonight has been how much different Oklahoma is than all of the other states. I mean, Oklahoma is a surprise on both the Republican and the Democrat ballot. I mean, the surprises there was no surprises in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. I mean, all of these other states, there were no surprises. And it came out, Trump was winning them and Clinton won them. And so really Oklahoma is the standout. I mean, I think that's the story, which is that why did it go so much different in Oklahoma than any of the other states that went just as expected?
Some of the photo galleries and the voter turnout today from across the state from the Oklahoman's photographers. And Phil, we spoke with Brian Dean off the top of our live election coverage here on newsok.com about the voter turnout that he was seeing at the election board, 2008 record turnout. Our Chris Castile is tweeting that at this point we're not really seeing numbers approaching the 2008 record turnout. And by the way, in 2008, Clinton won that in this state. Gentlemen, from the numbers you're looking at, from the precincts reporting, can you determine any sort of voter turnout and what we're looking at?
Well, one of the things we see is that there is higher Republican turnout than Democrat turnout. That's kind of a recent phenomenon in Oklahoma. I don't think that's happened more than 2 or 3 times in our history.
But is that surprising now that independents?
No, I think we all. I expected there to be a higher.
Even
Republican
with independents
turnout.
being able to vote on the Democrat side. Things.
Yes, and that's going to be one of the more fascinating things to look on the Democrat side.
We also talked about proportional voting earlier. So given the breakdown as you see it right now, is it about an even 3-way split?
Yeah, the delegate numbers will be very close to, if not, yes, they'll be very close to a 3-way split, because anybody that gets more than 15% will get one of the delegates in each of the congressional districts, and I can't imagine with these kind of numbers that they didn't all hit 15%.
Anything else surprise you about tonight?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's kind of devastating, because, the polling, especially our methodology, we have to go back and look at why didn't we catch this? It could be just down to timing. I mean, I know we were in the field after you guys.
When you guys go in the morning, what will be the first thing that you'll go to look at? I mean, what will you go when you review the numbers?
Well, one, you saw us on our phones. We're not going to wait till the morning. The reality is the thing that is most shocking to me is the real change from early voting to election day. Lots of times you don't see that kind of a substantial change. And so to me, that really says a lot.
Well, and you've talked about the importance of momentum. I mean,
it is. And so that's the shocking thing. And also, I'm going to want to see how much did Bernie Sanders spend here versus his other states on television. How much did Cruz spend here? I know he spent a lot in Texas. I think it was a $2.7 million buy in the region, reported the FEC here. Rubio had the negative ads. I know Club for Growth did ads just here and in Arkansas. And I think Arkansas, last time I looked, was still a little bit up in the air, so it could fall a little bit differently.
And Nolan Clay had a story this weekend about the ad spending, but of course the deadline for that report was prior to this weekend, obviously, so we didn't get all the late last-minute spending. It will be. I am curious to see how much money was poured in these last few days.
We can explain Texas because Cruz is from there. We can explain Arkansas because Hillary Clinton, was first lady there. The point is that when you look at the demographical profile of Oklahoma compared to other southern states, we're not that far off. So the question is, when you look at Alabama, or you look at, and again, there's a larger African-American contingent.
Right, on the Republican side, we're not that.
On the Republican side, we're not that side. On the Democrat side, we are. But on the Republican side, and let's just talk that for the moment, we're not that much demographically different than a lot of these southern states, and yet it's a completely different response today. I think, or turnout. I think that looking at Ted Cruz, for example, and you mentioned that he had done very well in Tulsa. Jim Bridenstine endorsed him very early on, had him there many times. They hired people on the ground that are from the Tulsa-Claremore area and in southern parts of the state. But the point of the matter is that you can see that there was an extra focus on the Tulsa area. We did not show in early polling that Ted Cruz was doing that well. So it lends me at just kind of face to think that Ted Cruz turned out some unconventional voters in which to be able to have this type of win tonight.
And Pat, am I mistaken? I mean, wasn't a lot of Bernie Sanders' campaign focused in Tulsa? I mean, somewhat, I don't want to say to the exclusion of Oklahoma City, but it seemed like there was a lot more emphasis in the Tulsa region than here. And I may be completely wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't know that I saw that. Okay. Of course, I wasn't watching that side as much. I will tell you that Cleveland County was dramatic that it was for Sanders, and you really see the impact there. If you look at Cleveland County, Sanders hit 60% there. In Payne County, the other university town, he's hitting 57. I do think that there's an age difference there that's really helped him.
That's right.
The only places that I'm showing right now that Clinton looks like she only wins maybe one county in the state, and that being Oklahoma County, where she's at 51% with 78% reported support.
One county.
Yep, is what it looks like right now. Tulsa County is competitive. Looks like neither candidate's going to break 50% there.
Hillary Clinton won one county in the entire state.
That's what it looks like right now. There are still some that don't have everything reporting.
Yes, very much so.
It does. I mean, even the ones that bordering Arkansas, obviously, you know, you'd think you'd get a little bleed over there, but not the case.
So even in the far reaches of the state, they're voting for the Democratic Socialists.
I could see Bernie Sanders focusing on Tulsa simply because, you know, that's where some of the most liberal voters are in the state. You know, Tulsa County, you know, carries the distinction of having not only the most liberal people in the state, but having some of the most conservative people in the state as well. Much more different than what you would find here in Oklahoma County. But yeah, I mean, I could see that's why he would maybe focus there, as you mentioned earlier. But certainly when he's winning 76 other counties, you know, even the Panhandle, even other places where, you know, it's a phenomenal win for him, and it shows you the power of last-minute money. It shows you the power of you know, late people making their decisions late in the game. And you know, our polling was all done and mine was by Thursday night. So it indicates that, you know, whatever happened Friday on, we didn't catch in ours, and certainly,
yeah,
what was your last day?
We finished Tuesday.
Finished Tuesday.
So Pat, when you look at on the Republican side, statewide, countywide, is it spread out pretty, or are there pockets of support for various candidates in various regions?
It looks like Payne County, Rubio only wins one county. He wins Payne County. But it's all the candidates between 31 and 26%. He is leading in Oklahoma County right now. But that's, again, all the candidates between 31.6 where Rubio is to 26 for Trump. There is a cluster in the southeast, as I kind of mentioned earlier, that's Trump supportive, and in the northeast, but very small counties that he won. Nothing of a really sizable population. But it's pretty consistent. I don't know that I'm just looking through here. I don't think I see any county where anybody got more than 45%, really more than 42% of the vote.
Oklahoma feeling the burn tonight. Bernie Sanders winning on the Democratic side of things. Ted Cruz on the Republican side of things. Big thanks to Pat McFerron, Bill Shapard for their analysis. They'll join us again at 10 o'clock. And, of course, Phil O'Connor for shepherding, if you will, that discussion. When we come back at the bottom of the hour at 9:30, Phil's crew rejoins us from the various watch parties. We'll have Darla, Silas, Adam, and perhaps Juliana providing some perspective from what they saw at the watch parties on the Democrat and the Republican side. Stay with us as Super Tuesday coverage continues here on NewsOK.com.